Cousin falsely accused me of SA, and now, after nearly 10 years, my family is finally reaching out. It's hard to explain how that moment shattered everything I thought I knew about myself and my family. For most of my childhood, I grew up in what I'd call a pretty typical household. My parents worked tirelessly, long hours, demanding jobs, but they always made sure I and my 3 older sisters felt cared for. We weren't particularly close as a family, but we weren't distant either. Family gatherings with relatives were occasional, warm enough, but always kept at arm's length, distant enough that we mostly stayed within our own small worlds. As years went by, life pulled us in different directions. We drifted apart naturally, as everyone found their own path, made their own choices. I was 22, a college student, when everything changed in 2014. I remember that day vividly. I was in the middle of a gaming session when my phone rang twice, an unspoken signal in my family, urgent. I excused myself, thinking maybe it was something serious. When I answered, chaos spilled out from the other end, my mother's voice trembling, cries, and what sounded like an argument. She asked if I had anything to confess about my youngest cousin. Was just 15 then, I hadn't seen her in years, and her name alone made my stomach tighten. I froze. I told her no, that she was mistaken. But her tears intensified, and suddenly she was accusing me of something beyond comprehension, claims of sexual assault, saying had confided in my sister, who told my mother, who told my aunt. She said that when was 9 and I 16, I had felt her up and kissed her in my room. My mind spun. I couldn't even process what I was hearing. I kept denying, insisting she was lying. But then, she started describing details, where I was, what I did, as if she had seen it herself. The absurdity of it all hit me hard. I remember thinking, this can't be real. It's some sick joke, some nightmare. The call ended with my parents telling me to never contact them again. My sisters called me disgusting, then blocked me. I remember taking a long, cold shower afterward. I didn't understand why I did it, but I did. After I calmed down, I reached out to everyone I could, included. They all ignored me, blocked me, or refused to answer. The only reply I got was from my father, a simple message: stop contacting us. We need to heal. That was 9 years ago. Since then, I've had no contact with my family. That silence has haunted me every day. It's a pain that's hard to describe, like losing part of your identity. The aftermath was a whirlwind. I was numb for weeks, barely able to eat, drowning in confusion and despair. The stress was compounded by the fact that I was supposed to defend my thesis soon. My mind was a mess. Thankfully, my co-writer saw how much I was struggling and took over the defense, shielding me from the worst. Without him, I might have failed. My graduation day was a lonely one, no family there, no cheering, just me. That's when my life spiraled further downward. The following year, I lived on savings, drowning in alcohol and drugs, trying to numb the pain. Resentment built into rage. I obsessed with ways to hurt or keep her secret hidden from the world. I'd lie awake at night planning revenge, imagining how I could make her pay for what she'd done. It's sick, I know. I'd stare at the ceiling, haunted by dark thoughts I can't fully explain. I felt like I was slipping away, lost in a fog of anger and pain. Then, in late 2015, something changed. I finally landed a job in my field. It was a turning point. I threw myself into work, trying to rebuild some semblance of normalcy. Slowly, I started to breathe again. I drank less, smiled more, and bought myself small luxuries: VR headsets, motorcycles, Lego sets. Last year, I finally bought a house, something I'd always dreamed of. A garage, a garden, these simple things gave me hope. Yet, beneath that, I wrestle with trust issues and dark thoughts. I've been on antidepressants for years. They help, but not in a way that makes me truly happy. They just silence the worst parts of me, leaving me numb. My personal life is limited. I've only been on a couple of dates, hard to speak, hard to connect. When people ask about my family, I usually just say, They accused me of something heinous, and we're estranged. That's the sad truth. It's a ghost I carry everywhere. Then, out of the blue, I received a message from my mom. I stared at it for hours, paralyzed by fear. When I finally opened it, she wrote about missing me, about my siblings, my nieces and nephews, none of whom I knew I was an uncle to. She said they love me, want to reconnect, even invited me for Christmas. The words felt like a hollow echo, a desperate attempt to mend what's broken. Part of me wondered if I could forgive, if I should try. But then I remembered how he minimized her actions, claiming she probably just dreamed it, and that reignited my anger. I responded harshly, telling her she knew the truth all along and that I'd never forgive her or them for the damage they caused. I also made a long, raw phone call to my parents. Hearing their voices again was surreal. I hated it at first, those voices had once been my comfort, now they felt foreign. But as the hours passed, I realized they were genuine. They apologized repeatedly, admitted guilt, and said they'd carried that guilt for years. The hardest part was asking why they believed E over me. They said she made it so convincing that they felt powerless, like they couldn't tell what was real. They admitted they should have helped me, but their fear of pushing me further away kept them silent. We agreed to stay in touch, but I'm not ready to visit. Still, it's a fragile step forward. A few months later, E reached out with an apology. It was lengthy and seemed sincere. She blamed her mental health struggles, said her parents were helping her. But to me, it felt like an empty excuse. E was a bright, joyful girl, until that day. Her words felt rehearsed, like she was trying to justify herself. That was the breaking point. I responded with brutal honesty, try being cut off from your family for 10 years, barely an adult, and see how your mind holds up. I told her she knew the truth and never told anyone. That she's lucky I didn't completely break. I made it clear I'd carry the scars forever and wouldn't forgive her. Despite everything, I decided to move forward. I visited my family recently. I was terrified. But the reunion was unexpectedly peaceful. I didn't rush into hugs, I explained how much they hurt me, how I felt abandoned and betrayed. My mom cried as I revealed my pain. They admitted they can't undo what's happened but want to look ahead. They even invited me to come home for Christmas. I told them I'd take things slowly. A small part of me feels lighter, almost grateful. I've started dating again, met someone I care about, and I'm gradually healing. The years of pain still linger, but I'm learning to live with it. My story isn't finished. But I share it in hope that others see that healing is possible, that time can bring peace, even after a decade of anguish. Trust me, I never thought I'd get here. But here I am, still fighting, still hoping, still trying to rebuild what was broken. And maybe, just maybe, things will get better.